Hey everybody, this is Cameron Olson from the Channel Advisors. I am here with my co-host and business partner, Eric Brooker, and welcome to the Channel 2.0 podcast. Today we are talking with our good friend and trusted advisor, friend of the show, Ruben Pina. Ruben, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm real excited to talk to you guys this morning.
Ruben, as we looked at your LinkedIn profile, we have several things on here. We have president and director of A1 BizCom for 21 years. We have owner of FRG Performance, owner of OG Excavating and Landscape. What isn't on your LinkedIn profile?
Man, from when I was young, one of the very cool things that my dad did for all of us is like if we were remotely interested in something, went all in on it. All right, you want to play baseball? Let's go get all the stuff for baseball. You want to play soccer? Let's go get all the stuff for soccer. And so he's really got us into, hey, if it comes into your mind as an interest, go all out on it. Put everything into it. And so that's kind of, if you look at my life, just even the LinkedIn and anything, that's kind of the flavor of everything is just get way into stuff.
So your entry, I'm always fascinated with how people get into this industry. And in many ways, it happened by accident. But you, actually, a lot like me, you grew up in this industry. Maybe give us a little background into your entree into telecom and how you became the owner of a trusted advisor.
Yeah, so my dad, very much like me, has just always been entrepreneurish. Like he's never really had a job for more than whatever, a couple weeks, couple months. He's always just kind of done his own thing. And when I was about to be born, he started a company doing dialer work. So, 10, 10, 2, 20 days, putting in dialers so that people can dial long distance. And he did that for a long time until the phone system started to replace those with LCR tables. And so programming in the phone system. So he started doing that. And from when I was young, I was installing dialers and installing phone systems with him. And it was always a one-man shop, just, my dad and me during the summer. And when I graduated high school, I graduated with some certifications like A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, MCSA, a lot of like Microsoft and CompTIA certifications, because at that time, when I graduated high school was 2003. So at that time was when ShoreTel and Cisco and voice over IP and SIP trunking was coming out. And so my dad seeing that was like, hey, listen, really push for all those certifications. So when you come out, we can expand. We were doing Samsung on-premise at the time into the voice over IP. You can handle that side. I'll still do like the old school stuff. And then we'll kind of do a little team and just grow it to what it is. And we did that. And then up until maybe about 8, 9 years ago, I'm real bad with dates, but 8 or 9 years ago, my brother came from the Marine Corps. I started training him as a tech in the field. My dad retired. I took his job. Ben took my job. And then we grew it to what it is right now. So in an overhead view, that's what happened.
What was it like? I think the days of working for family are pretty much fairly over, right? Our civilization holistically was always careers handed down from generation to generation and generation. You just don't see that much anymore. Talk to me about kind of the life lessons or what it was like working for your father and growing up in that environment.
Yeah, one of the things that my dad definitely passed on to all of his children is just thinking through things. He had this phrase, think about it, think first, think about it. And so, or think ahead, rather. Think ahead is what he would always say, just think ahead. And so one of the major lessons was always just thinking what's around the corner, whether it's what I'm doing right now, like a single task, or at an industry as a whole. And so he was always very ahead. One of the things that he did close to when I got out of high school and we started doing these SIP trunking and voice over IP was what he called a PCS system, a package communication system, where the customer would give one bill. They would have no upfront cost. They would just pay A1 BizCom monthly. That included the on-premise phone system. It included the SIP trunks and included the maintenance, and built a huge book of business off of just a recurring business model. Because he's like, imagine if they just had like one bill. It's super simple, and it would be simple for them to understand this voice over IP. We're just replacing their phone bill with this one, and why wouldn't they do it? So that ability to just like really think about everything that you're doing really has helped me grow. And every day in the chair with my dad, you know, in the passenger seat driving around, was always these lessons of, and I would ask simple things. What if this doesn't work? Like, what if none of this works? What if this all goes away? I mean, it's just me and you know, I mean, what if this goes away? And it was always, you know, I'm a Christian and he's a Christian. And it was always, we're going to be fine. We'll be taken care of. If this goes away tomorrow, I'll start something even better the next day. No big deal. Like we just keep pushing and keep thinking. And that's really the biggest thing that has kept me just moving down the road, no matter what it is, whether it's a performance shop or excavating or anything I don't know. I feel I have a superiority complex. I'm better than everybody at it. So no problem. I'll just keep doing it. You know, even if I don't know anything about it, just keep pushing, you know?
I'm curious, and I grew up with a similar background, but you grew up as a VAR, right? Your dad was a value-added reseller, and I'm curious. So many of today's agents or trusted advisors started as direct sales reps for some SaaS company and migrated into the role that you all sit in today. You came from that VAR community. How do you think that molded you to how you run a business and how you make decisions today?
Yeah, you know, I think and I've seen it before, people going back and forth between, say, like a supplier and VAR and back, or doing it on the side. Because when you're in a company and you've only been in a company, you have a skewed perception on what it is to be a business owner. Like, oh, on your side of the table is great, or, you know, all these things. When it's really tough, and that whole thinking ahead, problem solving thing, when you work for a company, a lot of that is like farmed out to other departments. And then when it's you that is having to make all these decisions and considerations, it becomes very difficult. And so I think for me, starting where I could see all of the problems, and you can't farm it out to anybody. You have to work your way through this problem, whether it's a customer issue or a supply chain issue, any of those things, that really builds something into you that is undefeatable. Like I can't be defeated because there's been a billion other things that have pushed me to that edge. And then I wake up the next morning and I'm over it, you know, and I've successfully passed that obstacle. So I think starting on the VAR side has really helped me because I've only been able to see the reality of business ownership, the problems that it brings, and how to overcome those obstacles and keep pushing forward. And I think that sometimes is a harsh learning curve coming from a supplier and then now having to do everything.
Do you practice your trusted advisor or your business practices differently than what you feel like the rest of the trusted advisors out there do? Like, are you providing additional feature functionality more in the VAR space, or are you traditionally just helping with the procurement process?
Yeah, so I think that my real value add, no matter what industry, and specifically here, but no matter where I'm at, my value add is I'm a problem solver at heart. And so when I want to meet with a customer, I never am thinking about selling them something. I'm really just want to understand that pain point. I just want, because very often I'm like, man, your pain point's not even high enough for you to do anything. It's going to be much more painful to change than it is to just deal with this inconsistency that you maybe have here that every other business in the world also has. And so I think that comes across very often to the people that I meet with, is that I just want to help to understand, because 2024, this world is complicated and confusing and frustrating, and there's no solutions, and there's just people wanting to sell you things constantly. And so to have somebody that, you know, everybody says in the industry, like, we want to wrap our arms around the customer and we want to make them feel good and understand their problems. But in reality, there's quotas that are like actually driving that conversation. And for me, I'm just really want to understand where the problem is.
So let's take that comment and migrate over to the supplier community, right?
Mm-hmm.
When the three of us started, there were 50, maybe 60 or 70 suppliers. Man, I don't know. There's probably 500 suppliers today. We're on our way to somewhere north of 1,000 suppliers in the next 2 years. As a trusted advisor, what would you say some of the best practices are, or some of the best practices maybe that you'd like to see from the supplier community?
Yeah. So when I was doing Samsung, and there was like that, I guess this was about 10, 12 years ago, when there was a transition from my dad coming out and me really taking things over. I had a channel manager named Valente Abeda, and Valente would come and meet with me. And at the time, my office was a non-air conditioned shed at my dad's house with one of those party tables, those white tables that you unfold. And he would come with me and he would say like, hey, listen, I think you should buy better shirts. You should probably put your logo on it. Hey, have you considered wrapping your vehicle? Do you have a car wash like membership that you could maybe do? Like, he literally started from the ground up advising me. So at the time, I was a very small Samsung dealer. I didn't do much. And over the course of 2 to 3 years, he spent time with me, and we became the second largest Samsung dealer in Texas. And first place was light years ahead of us, but we did a lot of Samsung. And it was because he took the time to understand that changing the business practice, changing the conversation, changing these things are what really helped push the business forward. So he invested time and effort. So that was very successful. Today, what I see a lot of is people taking you out to lunch. Hey, let me have a call and just throw up a bunch of information to you, and let me know when you have an opportunity, or why don't you try us out a few times? I mean, all these just free gimme words that come out that are just fishing for business. And almost like if I do this same pitch and this same lunch to 200 people, then I'll get 10% return on it, which I understand, which, there's some pressure to get some business, and that's fair. However, I think the thing that's missing is the real engagement with the partners. And so there's some lost synergy. We're asking the partners, myself, to meet with the customers to find pain points and address them. But we're not doing that from the partner to the supplier. We're just saying, just sell this stuff. It's great. We're the best of breed. Everything else is table stakes. We're ahead of the curve. We're all these things. And we're just really pushing it and not spending time with people like us, the trusted advisors, to say, hey, help me understand what got you here. Where are you going? What are your thoughts on how you talk to a customer? Just all of those things, they're not addressed or dealt with.
What I'm hearing is really invest in the relationship with the trusted advisor. It makes me think of, I was a trusted advisor about 15 years ago, and I had a guy in Phoenix, Dan Solomon. It's funny that you have a name. I've got a guy, Dan Solomon. Dan came to my office. My office was not much different than yours. Dan came to my office once a week. He'd bring a 6-pack of beer. He'd sit in the conference room. I'd do my thing. He'd do his thing. And I didn't realize it, but about 6-8 weeks in, I knew Dan was coming. And every single week thereafter, without thinking about it, I had a lead for him. So there was a method to his madness. But like you with the car wash, I needed to get to Vegas one year for channel partners, and it just wasn't in the budget. I was a new business owner. I was trying to cut costs. And Dan was like, hey, man, if you get there, my points, I'll use my points. You've got a hotel if you get there. But it's those little things that were done early in my days, and it sounds like early in your days as well, that really impacted how we do business today.
Absolutely. And I meet with a lot of different suppliers very often, and I tell every single one of them, bother me consistently. Email me, call me, text me, bother me, because my life goes a million miles an hour. And if you just expect to just have a breakfast or a lunch, and then all of a sudden this business is going to come in for you, I'm telling you right now, that's not how I work. I want you to bother me. I want you to be invested. Show up to my office, like, be invested. When I see you're invested, the person you're talking about, Eric, didn't do it with an ulterior motive to say, hey, look, if I get there often enough, he's inevitably going to have some sort of like an obligation to send me quotes. Like, just human nature is like, man, this person's investing in me. I want to invest in them. Like, that's human nature. And very often these channel managers are one call, and I tell them all the time, please invest in me. No problem. I'm going to be bothering you with emails. Ghost town. Like, I don't see anybody. I don't hear anybody. But the very few channel managers that are consistently calling me, Elizabeth Martin at Spectrum, every week will call me. What are you doing? Can we go have lunch or not? Can I go to your office and bring you a cookie cake? Whatever. She's consistently just engaging. And to your point, when an internet thing comes up, the first person I think is Elizabeth Martin, because I just saw her yesterday. I just seen her tomorrow. I'm having lunch with her next week. That engagement is missing, to be honest. I don't get that personal connection with almost anybody anymore. It's just so fast paced and so just try us out, try us out, try us out. We're going to experiment with my customers on people who just need something to sign up with. And so I think that's the biggest part that's missing, is that two-way investment between the suppliers and the trusted advisors.
So let's get a little more specific, because if you say, hey, just reach out to me, and you have 400 plus suppliers calling you in a month, I think we averaged that out. What was it, 13 a day, Eric?
Mm-hmm.
What did we 13 or something in a business day?
I think it was 18 a day. 18 channel managers at the suppliers would need to call Ruben to cycle through the 400 a month just once a month.
So that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Is there's all these suppliers, but if those, let's just say hypothetically, if those 400 suppliers all reach out to me to understand my business, of those 400, 200 of them will be like, you know what, where Ruben's focusing, we're not a part of. So those are off the table. Then, it just keeps whittling down to ones that are truly like, hey, listen, Ruben has a base that I for sure can provide value to. And there's some of them like George Varavagos at Coro. He does exactly what I'm saying. I mean, he consistently emails me, calls me, says, hey, Ruben, do you have lunch? Hey, are you going to be at Andretti next week? All these things. He's consistently, to the point where I feel pressure to say, hey, I got to give this guy business. He's really, and not in a negative way, like he's investing in me. I am responsible as a responsible, like fair human being to also invest in him. He has a great product. He's a good person. He's investing into me. He's saying I can do MDF, marketing funds, any of these things. I like that. That is a person who will have success. But unfortunately, that takes time to turn up. That's investment with a channel manager takes a good year or two with partners to get it going. And in these supplier communities, they don't give them that long. You got 6 months and you start producing numbers. So they're just looking for those numbers. And it makes a very weird kind of thing there.
So you say it takes a while, and it does, right, to build that relationship. Sometimes it's really hard to start doing business with a new channel manager just because they don't understand their ecosystem or their product or some of that stuff. So it may take you a while to feel the confidence. Talk to us about kind of your experience around the channel managers knowing their product and why that's important.
Yeah. So there's a lot of channel managers that I have run across that get with a new company and, hey, listen, the new company I'm with, man, the culture of the company is so great. And the products are so next gen. And there's, all these things, because it's a honeymoon phase. We all do that with everything in our lives. It's great. But there's always these curves, right? And so like after a while they go down, and that's either where the channel manager changes to another company and then you hear the same pitch over and over again. I think the biggest thing for the channel managers is to not only know the product, but know the company, understand that everybody has pain points. Every company has issues. All of those things exist. But it's very infrequent that these companies have such a terrible ecosystem and product that a good channel manager can't find ways around it and still provide value to their trusted advisors. And so, but that requires work. We always go back to it requires sweat equity in putting in work. So when you understand the product, that's great. And they need to understand the product, because what happens is a lot of these channel managers get high on just the pitch that the company is giving them, or the culture or the product or the price point. And so then all they do is provide to us what I can read on any marketing brochure. It's just these spitting out these things. And I've heard it a lot of times about integration with O365 or cybersecurity. If I ask a specific question, the immediate answer is, yeah, no, we do that all the time. Are you sure? Yeah, all the time. I'll bring an engineer. Are you sure? Okay, maybe not. Let me find out. And they're like, oh, no, we don't actually do that. Man, well, if you knew your product, we wouldn't have wasted these 4 calls to get to a final finalization of no, we don't do it. That's not saying that every channel manager needs to become an engineer, but a high level understanding of your product is very important. A high level understanding of the technology that drives that product is very important. And sometimes channel managers just remove themselves from that and say, oh, well, I got a sales engineer and he'll help you with that. And then just kind of disconnect from that call. I think it's very important for channel managers to understand the product, understand the technology behind the product, and the nuances that may come up. It provides them as a resource to the trusted advisor. Because if I have two companies and one channel manager just doesn't know anything and brings a sales manager in all the time versus another channel manager who has invested the time in understanding that technology, I feel like that's a partner for me. So I'm going to go and do business with him more often because he understands my questions versus the other guy is just like, yeah, just sign up and we'll take care. Dude, we have the best support system ever. Okay, all right, whatever.
I wholeheartedly agree with everything you're saying. The thing that I find so intriguing, one of the early comments an old boss, like maybe my first boss in this industry, Jake, said to me is, Eric, you're the quarterback of the deal. So I find it interesting. It was in my DNA when I was a channel manager that I would bring in a sales engineer if I didn't know the answer, but I would sit on those calls. A, I think in part to learn, but B, Jake told me I was the quarterback of the deal. So it's really intriguing to me that you reference that you see at least a good contingent or a decent contingent of channel managers that will engage a sales engineer and sort of step out of the deal altogether. So Coro's a great example. You brought up Coro earlier in the conversation. They're a very technical, highly technical security offering. It's not UCAS or contact center, some of these technologies that are a little easier to wrap your mind around. If I don't understand the technology as a channel manager, maybe I'm just not there yet, and I bring in other resources, what would you say is a best practice for me as a channel manager, staying involved with you, the trusted advisor, and the end user?
Yeah, so I think exactly what you just said on the quarterbacking is very important. You know, like I've dealt with both of you guys in the channel manager in the past, right? And in the times that I dealt with y'all is in the years past, right? So a long time ago, where let's call the good old days, right? Where legitimately y'all could say, and it was a talk track to from channel managers to trusted advisors to say, just lob it over the fence and we'll take it from there. Like if you don't want to be involved, we'll take it from there. And I used to have confidence, specifically, I know I've done it for both of y'all, where I know y'all aren't just going to hop on the call, disconnect, and not know anything about the pain points and stuff. I could not be on the call and then at the end of the call, call you guys and find out. And you'll be like, this is the pain points. These are the action items. This is this and this. I've tried that now with channel managers and they're like, man, I got called into an emergency, but let me get with my sales engineer and then I'll find out. I'm like, man, what are you even good for anymore? Like needs to be a synergetic line of help, from channel manager to trusted advisor to customer. And if any one of those legs drop out, we should be supporting the boat. We all should be in the boat supporting quarterbacking, all of those things. And I think that has been more and more missing. It all goes back to just that sweat equity. It's hard. Y'all know it's not easy to be on it and really understand the technical side from the sales engineer, being able to translate it to the customer, understand the problem, and then translate it back. You're the quarterback. You're the one that is bringing it back and then talking to the trusted advisor, Ruben, this is what we heard as a problem. Just to confirm, this is what you think. What would you think if we brought in this solution? Those like brainstorming, that's requires sweat equity, and more that's missing. Those are things that I've experienced with you guys in years past, and it is very much missing nowadays. And that's the main point.
It sounds like your recommendation, at least as I interpret it, is slow down to speed up, right?
100%.
I think we're all on these video calls, or we're listening to somebody give an answer to a question we just asked. We got a million things going through our mind because we get a notification or a phone call or an email pops up or a text message pops up, and we start thinking about that thing and we're totally spacing out physically we may be looking at the camera, but mentally we're maybe off somewhere else or working somewhere else or multitasking. And I think what you're suggesting is if you're going to be there in the call, be there in the call. So that next question that comes up, or the problem that happens later, or the recap that's needed, or you're getting ready to close that deal and a question comes up, you have all of that back knowledge in order to answer those questions and continue to move it forward. Did I get that right?
100%. And that's going to create the velocity, start off slow to speed up kind of thing. That's going to create the velocity on payoffs, not necessarily tomorrow. 6 months to a year from now, your trusted advisor who you've worked with intensively over that amount of time is going to start bringing those deals with velocity to you. And then your sweat equity will go down because you spent so much time on the front side. And so now you're going to be creating knowledgeable, trusted advisors. They're going to be understanding the process, and everything is going to move faster and better. And I think just that long-term gain, because it's just like working out. Working out, if you want to get jacked and have a six-pack, it takes every day for years, and you'll start to see results. And that whole sweat equity thing is just kind of missing. It's more and more I'm seeing it's missing.
So speaking of sweat equity, I know you're kind of a jack of all trades when it comes to selling products, right? So I know you sell a lot of UC, you sell a fair amount of cybersecurity, you're getting into some of the other things. Talk to me about how you would like a supplier to work with you on a technology you don't understand.
Yeah.
Let's say they're coming in. Let's use AI. AI is a huge buzz term right now. You're not quite sure how AI works. Somebody comes to you and wants to start selling you AI. What would you like that interaction to look like?
Yeah, I would want that interaction to look like a technology that comes to me with a business model approach. So, if like Jeff Bezos, I was listening to an old conversation of Jeff Bezos the other day, and one of the things he said is a lot of people make changes to business based on what may change in the future. So they're trying to predict what's going to change in 3 to 5 to 10 years, and then they're making adjustments for a prediction that may or may not happen. He's like, and that's good. We need that. But what are some of the things that we know people won't change? We know, do you want your things fast? They're going to want that fast now and 10 years from now. Do you want it cheap? They're going to want that now and 10 years from now. So spend your time on the things we know won't change. And so the problems that are facing businesses today are the same problems as 10 years ago. There's some of them that are the same as 10 years ago and will be the same 10 years from now. So now we have a new product, AI. How do we say, look, this is going to be the same problem 10 years from now, and here's how this technology addresses that static thing in your business with a dynamic solution that's going to save you money, versus like customers 10 years from now are going to spend $30 billion on blah, 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 blah. Okay, how do you even know that? And so they're going with these imaginary predictions, which may or may not happen, when we should really just take the tried and true technology, which you A, should understand what we're talking about, sweat equity, A, and understand. And then B, when you understand the business and the things that are going to remain static for that business over the next 5 to 10 years, how do you plug that into there? That's a much easier thing to do than this cloud. And I don't mean cloud talk like technology, head in the clouds, dreaming of how this is you're going to make $1 billion because the market's going to be $2 trillion by 2030. Let's just stick with the facts of what has been the case for a business, and let's make a business case for this new piece of technology. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It sounds like what you're proposing, or where my mind goes on the sales enablement side, is to be very specific in your case studies, right? Case study type learning, or case study type lessons. Right. I remember as I was going through college many, many years ago, one of my favorite classes was my capstone class, because there was a gentleman that had real world business experiences, and he would bring up particular situations that he faced and how he resolved those. And I think what you're asking for is, hey, as a supplier, come to me with how your product fixes business issues or solutions or provides solutions to businesses. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that is. Yeah, because very often, um, I'll listen to a pit. Like if I be in if I'm at an event, okay, and there's a lot of trusted advisors and a supplier is letting everybody know about their solution. It seems cool. Like if we love technology, it seems like really cool and we're kind of sold. But if there's not a connection to like, hey, look, here's a case study of a customer that we did. This was the specific pain point that they had for the specific industry and the specific solution that we provided to benefit them. Sometimes that connection between the trusted advisor of cool product, customer need doesn't happen because there's just this lofty talk about this technology, but not necessarily how it makes it to the ground level. When that connection is made, then as I'm listening to a pitch, I can look around and see everybody's light bulbs going off of like, you know what? I just met with somebody last week that I think they said something like that I could go and listen to. That is the biggest part, versus just, the NASCAR slide that has all the people that they do. And then, all of the technology and this many engineers on staff, all these things that, okay. I don't know that there's any benefit, but maybe there is to some people. But really the connection, it's all that connection. But it requires sweat equity, understanding the problems, understanding the technology, understanding where that connection happens, and really meeting with the trusted advisor to make that connection. That's the biggest part.
Yeah, I think where I see a lot of suppliers go wrong is they talk about the features of their product and they expect the trusted advisor or the partner to make the correlation to the business problem.
That's right.
Hey, we have this feature, it does all these amazing things, and then they move on and people are like, well, that's cool, that's a cool product, but I don't know how it fixes the problem. And I think, as you mentioned earlier on in this conversation, is you are a problem solver. And if we can't correlate the technology to how it solves problems, it's hard to make that correlation sometimes because you don't know enough about the product.
100%. I was at a event recently where we were talking about UCaaS, CCaaS, and AI. It was kind of a roundtable advisory council, and one of the trusted advisors, he didn't say who he used in the CX platform, but he had mentioned that the problem that his customer had was it was a large call center, 1,000 users, something like that. And they have very high turnover, and it's hard to keep employees there. And that resulted in their CSAT score going pretty low, right? And their time to resolution from the customer calling to resolution was higher than they wanted. And so what they did is they tested this platform and this AI, conversational AI. It cut the time to resolution to one call resolution instead of like 2.3. And the time of that resolution cut from like 12 minutes to 2.5 minutes. The CSAT score doubled, and they saved like 15 grand a month in doing this. And it's immediately scalable to however big that they want to do it. Now, there was some sweat equity and understanding all of that, how it works and how it's priced, and building the library for that conversational AI. It was a lot of work, but it's inevitable that that is going to be the solution the customer is going to go with because it makes sense on every single front. But that took a lot of time and a lot of understanding of the customer. And they may go through that and then it not be a good fit. And then they have to go to the next customer, And so those are the kinds of things that when I hear, like, man, I wouldn't even have thought about that. And those different factors that went into making the decision. And then what kind of organization is making the decision? What kind of hierarchy? What kind of board of directors? What industry are they in? Because it may make financial sense, but the board of directors are still like, no, we have a commitment to hiring this many of people. And if we don't, then we're going to remove the funding. All of that plays into the fact of whether or not it's even worth bringing the technology to that business, because we have to understand the business first. But that requires sweat equity. We always go back to like, it requires that engagement, that understanding, that research. And I think that's where success is going to come from. And more, the people who do that, channel managers and trusted advisors, are going to separate themselves from the pack, because there's going to be two distinct people that are involved in all of these deals.
Talk to me. It's funny, as we start to wrap up the show, you said separate yourself from the pack. I think you've done a really good job of that outside of the industry as well, because the amount of times that I've been at an event and I have seen your wife shared a meal with you and your wife and the kids, you do it a little differently than most. I know you're focused very heavily on your family, on married life. How have you been able, as an entrepreneur and someone in a candidly a very event heavy business,
Mm-hmm.
obviously as an entrepreneur, requires a lot of hours. How do you manage balancing work and family life amidst all the things you have going on?
Yeah, that's a tough thing. And, that goes back to, I think one of the things that, a channel manager can jive with is there's these ebbs and flows with companies, right? So like sometimes you like your boss, sometimes you don't like your boss, sometimes it's easy to get along, sometimes it's not. And same thing with my family life. Like when my kids were much younger, I went to more of the events because they weren't in school yet. Now they're in school, so I go to less events because I don't like traveling by myself unless it's a big enough event to go to. I'll leave the wife and kids for a few days, but it has to be worth it. And so then like family life starts to diminish a little bit because I am doing so much work and sometimes without them. But then I have to make changes. And like one of the changes we're making this year is kids are going to homeschool. So I can do more of these trips and I can bring them with me and understand the business the way I was homeschooled through 6th grade. So I went to work with my dad almost every day when I was growing up to get an understanding of the industry, of what dad is doing, what mom is doing, because it's very important. We all travel, we all do things a lot. And we've seen in the industry people that the traveling kills their marriage and their family, and families that stay together very well. Y'all are two perfect examples of it. And the reason why is because they don't necessarily have to go with you everywhere, but a solid conversation, just like we're talking about with customers, these conversations of understanding pain points and how we resolve those pain points. Man, that's a life lesson. It's not a business lesson. That's a life lesson to understand why wife is upset, why kids are upset when they yell something of like, well, because you're working all the time, or I don't have it on one of here, but on one of the things at school, the kids at elementary, like, my dad weighs as much as blah blah blah. My dad likes this. My dad very often, and one of the kids put, is in meetings all the time, something like that. And I'm like, man, that's cute, but that's also not. That shouldn't be a legacy that I'm leaving to them, And so when I take those, I can't have the attitude of like, hey, well, I'm providing for the family. I'm doing what I can do. I'm doing this for you guys. You have to also think, what is the problem? What is the pain point here that's maybe being masked by a little cute comment, and getting to the bottom of that? That's very important to me in my family life, my wife, my kids, and customers. I'm a problem solver. I want to understand so that I can make changes. And like there's, what's his name, Alex Harmozy. He's like a business guy, and basically he says the quicker you realize that everything is your fault, the faster everything will get fixed. And so like I look at everything as my fault. I messed up somewhere, so what do I fix to fix this situation? And family life, business life, all of those things, that's how I balance what am I doing wrong and how do I fix that? Because I'm in control of myself. I'm not in control of everybody else. So if I can make it my mistake, I can have an effect on the resolution. If I just blame, then there's no resolution because it's somebody else. I can't affect them doing something.
How open are your kids, and how much are they wanting to be involved in the business and learning business versus the standard kid wants to go out and play, but you're trying to help? Like, how open are they to the learning and the education you're giving them?
It depends on the day. They both really like making money. They like making money because we've kind of made a system. We buy them a lot of stuff, obviously, as mom and dads do. But if we're somewhere and they want something, more often than not, it's, well, if you have money, you can buy it. That's fine. You can get it. It's on your own money. And so very often, if I tell them like, hey guys, y'all are going to come to work with me today, or y'all are going to go work with the excavating crew today, the very first question is, well, how much am I getting paid for doing that? And so like they're very focused on what is my ROI. I specifically remember one time
is it worth their time is what they're asking.
Is it worth their time? I mean, we went to a job once. I specifically remember on a Saturday, I took the boys to finish up and clean up. And at the end, I told them I was going to give them $30 for their work for the day. So I'm giving them $30. And my oldest son, RP3, is looking at the $30. I'm like, what's up? And he's like, how much did you charge that customer for that job? And I was like, okay, well, listen, it was a big job. It was a couple weeks. I charged them $20,000, but it was a couple weeks of work. Like, and you're only giving me $30 for my work? Like, okay, hold on. Let's back up here. That's not how this works. But they're very much thinking along those lines. And it's just because I involve them every day. They go to sales calls with me. They go work with the guys in the excavating. A1 BizCom, they'll go and work with them to troubleshoot TVs or computers. Like, they're very much just trying to understand the world. And not even so that they can be a part of the business. I asked them, hey, do you want to be a part of the business? And RP3 doesn't seem to want to do it. He wants to do something else. But just the skills of problem solving, of interfacing with people, getting along with coworkers, taking orders, being responsible for doing things, those are all things that will inevitably take them to wherever they want to go. And so, it's untold whether they're going to stay involved with the companies long term, because it goes back and forth. But again, I think the most important part is just them understanding that it takes work. I don't care what it is. It just takes work.
Well, thank you very much for your wisdom and insight. All things channel, all things family, kids. We appreciate your time and joining us today, Ruben. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I always love talking to you guys.